What's up, Legion of the Lariat? It is I, Steve Zapf, your leader, and back with me from the void, not the noid, my boy Hound. Welcome back, Hound. It is great to see you again. How you doing today, buddy?
That is the first time in my life anyone has uttered that set of words towards me. But yes, I have returned from the void unscathed. Perhaps a little enlightened, perhaps a little dumber. We shall see. But no,
We're gonna find out today, aren't we?
something. I'm going to put a foot forward. Whether it's best or worst, we'll find out.
Don't worry, Legion. We gonna learn you today.
But it
Uh,
is good to be seen again.
So, just real quick for the Legion, today's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a different format. It's going to be a little bit more free flowing between the two of us. We're kind of at this lull / reset for the stuff that we normally follow. We do have some exciting stuff to talk about with both brands, both NXT and AEW, and we will get into that stuff, but it's going to be a little bit more me and Hound just kind of riffing with each other at this point. But real quick, got to talk about our nonprofits. First, Tap Cancer Out, a series of jiu-jitsu tournaments that help out with varying cancer relief funds. We have Alex's Lemonade Stand, American Brain Tumor Association, the Isabella Santos Foundation, Little Pink Houses of Hope, Camp Sunshine, Christopher's Haven, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins, CureCervicalCancer.org, First Ascends, and Tom Coughlin's J Fund.
Yay, fun.
It sounds even better with Hound's awesome voice. The other one that I always like to show the screen for is the Hurricane Milton and Helene relief effort being done by the American Red Cross. Please, folks, so many people from these storms this hurricane season are kind of left without anything realistically. There are, especially some of those areas of North Carolina where you're down in some valleys, and I don't know if anyone realizes this, but dams aren't made to break, and well, they did. So some of these people are really, really left without nothing, and every little bit that you can do helps. As always, we will make sure that the links to all of this are in our description, whether you're watching this on video or listening to us on varying streaming networks. They will be in our descriptions for both, along with our social medias, which also have the links for these varying causes, which are greatly in need.
Folks listening out there, please remember any help is appreciated, whether it's spreading the word. I know not everybody is in a position to do something financially and donate monetarily, but spreading the word, getting this out in front of people. Heaven and God forbid that any of this should ever touch any of you listening individually, but if it did, I would hope that there would be help there for you. I'm a big proponent of pay it forward, so if you can, please do. If you're not in a position to do, tell somebody. You never know. You might be the person that touches the person that changes the world.
Folks, even like Hound said, if it's not financially, an amazing thing that you could help out with a lot of these people, as if you pay attention to any of the stuff for like the Carolinas, they're getting into cold, what's known as jacket season for them. And some of these people, they lost everything. If you have old jackets, old coats that you don't wear, don't want anymore, send it to them. These people could use them. These are people, that is just as important to these people as money at this point. And again, we are supporting the American Red Cross. That doesn't mean that any of these other organizations that you are helping out with are any more or less important than this. Helping is the biggest thing about this one. And I think that's our biggest thing. Is I knew as soon as we started doing this show that I wanted to make sure that we were constantly trying to promote some type of nonprofit organization, some sort of charity to help people out. Because if it wasn't for people helping us out, honestly, I say it all the time, I probably wouldn't have this show. I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm able to do. So I just want to make sure that we pay it forward as much as we possibly can.
And you said something that I think everybody takes for granted. There's not one of us who can walk around and truly say, I've done it all on my own. Every one of us has had help along the way, whether seen or unseen. And I personally have always found that I get more joy out of helping others than ever receiving anything. So, and I believe that holds the same for just about everybody. And you can kind of look at it selfishly too, being like, I get to feel good now. And there's
Oh,
nothing wrong with feeling good.
it'll always make you feel better, guys. Always. But with that said, Hound Dog, you know what time it is. It's time to talk some wrestling. Some RASSLIN wrestling.
I didn't sign up for this. I thought we were
You
doing
complete.
something
I
completely
actually have a
different.
signature in blood. It might not be blood. It might be blood though. We don't know. So we are going to kind of keep it on form a little bit in the sense that we are going to talk about NXT first. I know kind of the most exciting thing that happened in NXT this week, and maybe it's just most exciting thing to me, was Stephanie Viqueur debuting. I am a huge. I know Showtime and I, when Stephanie Viqueur had her match in AEW against Mercedes, Stephanie outshined Mercedes in that case. And I know that it was a very New York heavy crowd that was anti-Boston, so anti-Mercedes. But at the same time, if you watch that match, the star that came out of it was Stephanie Viqueur. And this whole angle with her and Julia and Cora Jade and Roxanne, I think Stephanie Viqueur is going to come out as the star.
Stephanie has the biggest upside of the three outside of Roxanne. Roxanne is established, and I am very excited to see where the next few years take her. But the important thing that I came away with from Stephanie's first match, I butcher the name of the girl. I butcher. It's Wren Sinclair.
Wren Sinclair.
I don't know why I would always mess up Wren, but the two big takeaways I had from that: one, Stephanie Viqueur is not a star in the making; she is a star now. She just needs one or two catching lightning in a bottle moments, and I believe will become more of a household name. I believe out of her and Julia, which both are incredible, incredible women, you will never do yourself a disservice going and looking up at any of their matches, looking at any of their highlights, anything like that. Stephanie is going to be the bigger of the two stars in the WWE system, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but she was incredible. And Wren Sinclair, for as young and as inexperienced and as new, my God, can that girl go? She is miles ahead of where she should be. And before we went live, we were discussing this. Even subtle facial expressions like Jake the Snake Roberts stuff, where like the tilt of a head, the placement of a foot told the story. She's already in that mindset. She's so far ahead of the curve. I am so excited to see where her road goes. I hope that it's not littered with injuries, and knock on wood. And I hope I didn't just put that out there in the universe. But the Stephanie Viqueur is 100% a star. And the fact that Wren Sinclair got in there and didn't just go with her showed she belonged. 100% she belonged.
Hound Dog, I'm glad that we talked before we came on, because you correct, again, some of the times we talk about things needing the correct verbiage. And the verbiage I had originally used was critique. And this is not a critique on Wren Sinclair.
Yeah.
My excitement for Wren Sinclair is seeing, like, knowing how new she is and knowing how far she can go from here. She's already, I feel this is about as high of a praise as I can give to any female wrestler. She reminds me of as a female Kurt Angle.
Yeah, she 100% it's natural.
She has that natural wrestling ability, but she has that natural showmanship that you didn't expect from a traditional amateur athlete.
So you saying it like that, it's, I guess the comparison I would draw then is Let's look at someone like a Ricochet. Ricochet, who can do everything in the world in the ring, is a fantastically handsome gentleman. I mean, he's got a body any of us would kill for, but don't put him near a microphone. Like, he can get the
Ever.
sympathy heat from the crowd, where looks like you just killed a puppy with a kitten in front of him when he's taking another beatdown from somebody who's 19 times his size. Wren Sinclair can do all of that, and she can cut a promo. And when you were saying that, this is something where I hope they explore this in the not too distant future. Maybe as they do move Roxanne to the main roster. So Roxanne calls herself the Prodigy. Wren Sinclair is also a Prodigy. You could kind of have the going away program, one Prodigy to another.
I could see that. I could also see them, because there's been a lot of really great wrestlers that get this moniker that are usually some sort of prodigy. I could see Wren Sinclair being the next wrestler in any way, shape, or form that gets the moniker of the future.
Yeah.
The future Wren Sinclair, Wren the future Sinclair. I mean, if you look at the people that have had that moniker before, it's the Frankie Kazarians, it's the Chris Sabins, it's the guys like that. Like, those are people to be in league with, realistically. And I think she has all of the tools to produce at that level. I see a world where Wren Sinclair is a world champion in the next couple of years, a main roster world champion.
I see that, and forgive me, I just drank a little bit of seltzer, and I'm trying, got the seltzer burp stuck in my chest right now. So
The LaCroix.
my LaCroix.
The crux.
But I'm excited and that's a great way to look at that with her when you're talking, because that's high praise, putting her up there with a Kazarian, and types like that.
I almost feel bad that I'm gushing over her the way that I am, because it's almost hard to live up to the praise that we're giving her right now, just because I just described her in the same terminology as Frankie Kazarian and Chris Sabin and Kurt Angle.
Okay, and I see where you're going with that, but also remember, like, everything ebbs and flows. Everything, sunrises, sunset. Everything, the pendulum gets over here, it's got to get all the way over here. So she'll go through a time where there'll be a storyline where she's not booked well, and it's not hitting with the crowd the right way. 100%, that's the ebbs and flows of it.
It happens to everybody.
And that will be the true test of where she goes with that. Because look at John Cena, who was Super Cena. Everybody loved him. And then people were like, wait a minute. No, let's go Cena. Cena sucks. And the fact that he rode that wave the way he did, that'll be the test. Granted, it may never get to that point, but it will be the first time she's like super poorly received, how it goes over. Think of Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was on top of the world, and the crowd booed her, and she had a meltdown. So,
in both companies,
yes.
So we've been gushing over Wren Sinclair this whole time, and don't get me wrong, she deserves every bit of it. I love finding a new female wrestler that works at this level. Mm-hmm. But I mean, kind of what we started with was Stephanie Viqueur, and like we said, kind of like you said, she's not going to be a star. She is a star. And I definitely see, out of all of this, Stephanie Viqueur probably will end up being the eventual person that takes the title and becomes the face of NXT's women's division for another couple of months. You know what she reminds me of, actually? The way where she's at right now as far as NXT goes and her star power, it's Finn Balor. It's Finn. It's it's Finn in NXT. You knew Finn was going to do awesome on the main roster. It didn't matter about his size. It didn't matter about anything else. He just needed a little bit of time to hone and to be the face of this before he could go up there.
You saying it like that brings me back to I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before. You posed a question to me because out of the trio of us, I am probably the most versed with the Japanese stuff.
With Japanese wrestling, yes.
And you said, why is it that it's not transitioning over? And like Finn's a perfect example. Stephanie Viqueur is another great example. Julia. And like I had mentioned, it's look at the first word of these promotions. So for WWE, even though NXT is WWE, it's World. The other is New Japan.
Yeah,
and
it's Japan.
That's really what it is. It's just, it's a smaller pond. You're not going to get everybody who can come over and do that. Julia has the look, has the ability in the ring. She has a language barrier. And that, if she can get over that and get enough English going, the crowd 100% will fall in love with her. She's a stunningly gorgeous girl. And she can go in the ring. Stephanie Viqueur doesn't have that issue.
She doesn't, at least not the same language barrier.
Yes.
Like, because she comes from more Spanish-speaking culture, I feel like she speaks better English. Her English is better than, say, Julia is. There is a slight one, but it doesn't sound so broken up. And I don't want to sound like the dumb white guy here or the dumb American, but the fact of the matter is American wrestling fans will either automatically chastise you or fall out of love with you if they can't understand you a lot of times. And I hate to use them as this one. Shinsuke was a prime example of this. Shinsuke in NXT was awesome because they just rode what Shinsuke was. He was this amazing worker in the ring who did eccentric stuff, and it was cool. The worst thing they ever did was the second they brought him in onto the main roster, they put a mic in his hand, and they didn't just put a mic in his hand, they gave him the ability to talk, but they put his mouthpiece in already.
So I don't think we're going to run into issues quite like that anymore. There's definitely a new guard there.
And that's the other thing.
I believe a lot of those issues, which were pervasive all the time and would come across, will be lessened with the regime and everything else. And, and this isn't being the dumb American or anything like that. Let's realistically, do you think there are more people in the U.S. who speak Spanish or Japanese? Come on now. And so there's that too. And plus she's not, is she, fluent in English? No, it's definitely still broken a little bit, but she's miles ahead of where Julia is in being able to communicate. Now, having said that, you can point to another thing. Asuka and Io Sky have the crowd eating out of the palm of their hands when the two of them just snap on each other in Japanese.
Yeah, but
that's a special scenario.
I feel like that's special, and I think that's because even if you're not a woman or you're not into that sort of thing, we all kind of just imagine it's what happens at Asian nail salons, right? Like I'm serious. Like, oh, so pretty. I make so pretty for you. And then like while they're talking to you, oh, you do that. You should break up with him. He no like you. And then they yell at each other, and you're scared that, like, I've talked to my wife and I've talked to other women that have gone through this, where it's like, please don't cut my finger off while you're snapping in whichever Pacific Island language you are using right now.
So completely off topic. And so Legion out there, in our real life, Steve and I have been friends for, good Lord, north of 2 decades. We have another gentleman.
We are definitely over 2 decades at this point.
We have another gentleman in our friend group named Ken. Ken is of Filipino origin. And Ken is one of my closest friends on the planet. So when he was still in Jersey, we went to a Filipino restaurant, him and I. And when I walked in, like he walked in before me, and when I first walked in, everybody in there was speaking English. The second they saw the 6'8" white guy, the entire place switched to Tagalog. Ken looked at me and goes, "They're talking about you." I was just like,
Oh man.
I was like, I love it. Sorry, just the whole language thing just made me have a memory, and
No,
I wanted to
definitely.
share it with
So
you and share it with the Legion.
so Hound, I want to actually get something else out for NXT real quick. NXT, you actually said this to me first, and then someone else said it to me this past week. And that's that you guys truly believe that, because let's face it, HBK, Shawn Michaels, is probably not going to be in NXT forever. He's not going to be running things. He's already a bit of an older dude. He was full on retired, and he was happy being retired. He liked relaxing with his wife and his kid and all that stuff. But that your thought process is that CM Punk is going to eventually take over the running of the overall running of NXT at some point. First of all, I really like this idea. And part of the reason why I like this idea is one of the things that we've said, and I hate to say it because I don't want to beat the dead horse in this case, but one of our major flaws that we find with Tony Khan, and this is one that's not his fault, just in case you're and the Legion is wondering. So I'm not trying to run them over the coals in this case. But one of the things that all great promoters, all great bookers had in common was they sat under the learning tree, not Chris Jericho the learning tree, an actual learning tree of a great promoter / booker before them. You can say Vince McMahon sat under his father, and he sat in rooms with guys like Pat Patterson, like Sergeant Slaughter, like Gorilla Monsoon. And if you listen to some of the reviews on, I'll go with Cornette on this one. Cornette talks about how Vince was really great at coming up with ideas, but he was smart enough to surround himself with people who knew how to execute the idea. So that I'm going to give Vince his flowers on that one. He knew what he knew, and he also knew what he didn't know. Tony, unfortunately, doesn't have that luxury of sitting at that learning tree. Now, anyone who's wondering, the fact that CM Punk is a Paul Heyman guy, Punk absolutely sat at that learning tree. If you listen to all the old stories, it's how Punk sat and learned from Paul different booking styles, different ways to do television, different. When he was in OVW, he really sat with them and learned. And I think it's interesting that Punk falls into that traditionalist booker idea in that sense. Do I think he would book NXT the same way that Shawn Michaels does? No. I think it would be a new NXT. It would be a new version of NXT, but I think it would be interesting to see the version that we would get with CM Punk. Do I think it would be a completely? No, I think it would transition. We would get a transitional period where certain things were the same, certain things were changing, and it would move I think it would move very nicely, actually.
Okay, so I don't think CM Punk has hidden the fact since he returned. I think the thing that broke his heart most about the AEW thing is that's all he wanted to do. Yeah,
He just wanted to help out with kids. He wanted to help out with the younger talent.
Look, he's somebody who, all right, we know that, okay, you're not actually fighting for a title. He's somebody who wants the belt. He does. It's a thing to him. And like there's a I don't know how true it is, but I've heard from multiple sources on YouTube and like dirt sheets, if you will, that I've read that Kevin Owens doesn't want a belt. Doesn't want a title belt.
I have heard that. I heard that he does not want a title belt. He does.
Like,
I
even
think
secondary.
I think it's part of his thing is because I've also heard he still hasn't renewed his contract yet.
Well,
And again,
So
we that is speculation at this point. We don't know how into the process they are. Nowadays, it's far, far different than how it used to be, where if you ever hear about old stories of contract negotiations, they would start off like 3 months in advance. Now, if you have like a year to 18 months left on your contract, now you start getting, hey guys, like we should sit down and figure this out.
but yeah, but not to completely lose where I was going with that.
Yeah.
It's Punk does he I believe at some point, I'm not sure which main roster title he's going to have, but he's going to have it. I don't think he would have come back without it. I mean, that's why he had held the AEW title, what was it, twice? 3 times? Whatever it was, but it was multiple times.
Twice, and the second time was he didn't lose it. That was when he got hurt.
Yeah.
And he came back.
So the thing, this is the only fear I would have. And I think CM Punk, and again, and this is me starting, he's growing on me more and more, as you know, which is good, because I've always wanted to like the guy. He just always kind of, he's come across as somebody who I wouldn't hang out with in real life, and that's all it is. Not to never wish ill upon the gentleman, and I'm glad that he's doing well. I hope, because he is a very petty man and he will admit it, I hope that he, when he eventually steps into that role, he doesn't try to overdo it or to have everything be a middle finger to Tony Khan, because that could go horribly wrong quick. Like, that could turn left fast if he I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either.
Have to put it out there.
So I will say this. I don't think it will, only because of the CM Punk that we have now. I think if this was CM Punk a couple years ago, it might be. I don't think we get that CM Punk now. I think honestly, the CM Punk we get now is much more geared for the big picture of the business. That's always that's, and again, if even the way that him and Drew have been delivering for this program that they just got done with, I don't see him not doing what's right for business, so to speak.
Well, he also, in AEW, how do I want to word this? He was bigger than Tony Khan, and nobody's supposed to be bigger than the owner, the president, whatever. Like, that, ultimately, sure, bigger name, people know who it is, everything else. But one, not to steal Roman Reigns phrase here, but when Tony Khan walked in the room, everybody should know that when they sat down at that board table, he was sitting at the head of it. And you could argue that CM Punk was sitting there, and Tony Khan relented to that. And I get that, and I think a lot of that has to do with Tony Khan's age, and just the fact they're still only 5 years old. But again, let me crystallize this point. I don't think Punk would do that. It's more anything that I'm thinking. I try to present a counterpoint in case somebody wants to say, I agree with this because of A, B, and C, or I disagree with this because of X, Y, and Z. Just to have a conversation going, because I believe that's where you find the most productive things and where you can have the most Venn diagrams cross over each other and reach the most people. And I love nothing more than a good conversation. So I think CM Punk has grown up, and he's also got Triple H and the TKO board that are going to be like, no. Like, nobody cracked the whip on him over in AEW. There are quite a few people, including The Rock, who will go down there and just smack him and be like, stop it.
Yeah, that's a no.
Yeah, just 4 across the eyes.
At the same time, though, I'd be really excited to see what he could do running NXT or running the creative side of NXT, at least. It kind of makes me excited, because I think we would, as much as we talk about how much we love TNA, I think we would start getting a wrestling product. NXT is already kind of that wrestling product for WWE. I could see Punk being in charge, turning it even more into the wrestling product, the wrestling show. The nothing here. We don't do overly silly stuff. We don't insult your intelligence. We present men and women fighting in this ring over to settle their differences. And I could see it being very good because of it.
Yes. What is it? Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple,
It's
stupid.
SmackDown is your cinema. Okay, this is where your bloodline is. This is where we're telling this story that I think is going to be unfolding for at least the next couple of years. And I'm hoping Cody Rhodes' part in it is going to. He's going to be back involved with it sooner than I'd like it to be. But then I'm hoping there is a long separation there. So Raw is going to be more of your everyman show. This will be the thing where you got a lot of folks who get together, dads and kids, moms and kids, on Mondays on Netflix when it goes there. Hey, this is our popcorn night, and they watch a couple matches.
It's Monday Night Football, basically. I realize it's both on Monday, but it's Monday Night Football. It's going to keep going, and
yeah,
a lot of times you're going to watch it just because it's been around forever.
Yeah, and you know as well as I do, the majority of people, you sit down and you watch one Raw, there will be something about a storyline that grabs a hold of you, and you'll be like, and you'll watch the next week to see what's going on with it, and then maybe it doesn't land, and you're like, all right, whatever, and you go on. But I don't know of many people, unless like Raw is a complete dud, that or it's a go-home show, where people don't tune in for the next one because you do get a little bit invested. And I don't think NXT needs to worry about long-term storytelling right now. Of course, you need to have a little bit, but when it comes to the cinema portion, that's going to be the SmackDown portion of things. When it comes to ultimately like the everyman stuff, I think that's why Gunther is over on Raw, because I think he's the perfect wrestler, and I think you could show him to non-wrestling fans or a lapsed wrestling fan who hasn't seen it in a long time, and they'll take a couple things away with, wow, I don't want to get hit by him, and wow, he's incredible. And NXT can kind of, if with Punk at the helm, they can kind of almost ROH it, like old school ROH it. And I who knows if he would want to bring back the whole handshake beforehand, because Ring of Honor was a big part of CM Punk and who he is and still is. But NXT could have its own identity there, which I think would do wonders to serve the younger talent coming in. Because if it's going to remain a feeder system, I think you need to focus on getting people out there on your 2-hour show. How many solid 7 to 9 minute matches can you put out a week?
I mean, in 2 hours, you can do quite a few, actually.
So you could realistically walk away with between, conservatively guessing, 5 matches and 2 segments, and that could fill the thing. And you give people time to practice their craft in front of a live crowd when it comes to, here's what I want to try out for this promo. That landed well. Let's see where this goes. Okay, that landed like a plane crash. Let's not do that again. And other than that, you can have you could constantly be doing something where there's a series of matches between two people heading towards a secondary or a main title, and have everything play out over the course of time leading into the next PLE for NXT, where competitor A and competitor B are having a best of 5 over these couple of weeks while the champion's watching on the whole time and critiquing and going back and forth, where it seems like almost the champion's offering criticism, and you see if that criticism is being taken to heart and it gets applied, and then into the next PLE, and then maybe that's a program going forward. That is a very, very rough idea there that could be fleshed out more, but I think you see where I'm going with it. And I think having something formulaic in that manner would serve the younger talent well.
I agree. I think I could see him doing something, like I said, and this is all speculation and conjecture at this point, because
Hearsay.
until otherwise told, Shawn Michaels is the guy down there. except for when CM Punk stole his hat, and then it was a little weird. It wasn't the biker shorts; it was just a hat.
All I know is Shawn Michaels believes.
Shawn Michaels does believe. So Hound, let's get into AEW a little bit more. We're gonna talk about. Sorry about the dog. So
It's all right, Stoli. Everything is fine.
So AEW, the biggest thing going on with AEW right now is the stuff going on with the Blackpool Combat Club, or the new iteration of the Blackpool Combat Club,
the NWO, if you will.
Yes, the combat Blackpool Club.
Oh no! It's be Blackpool Combat Club BC. It's the BCCWO. There we go.
The BCCWO. So, as far as they go themselves, I don't know if I have much of a problem with them as a group. I think they're menacing. I think they're intimidating. I think they do what they should be doing. I heard this recently, and I do slightly agree with this though. You have Jon Moxley, who's arguably, regardless of we have both gone on record, Jon Moxley is not our cup of tea. He is not. At least Jon Moxley of late. Jon Moxley of late is not the style of wrestler that we naturally navigate towards. With that said, he is still a star. He is a big, bright, shining star, and he's one of their biggest, brightest, shiningest stars. Having him on camera look the camera right in the face and say, "This place sucks," might not be your best bet to build outside of the audience you already have. Because, and the other side of this is, well, I'm a casual wrestling fan. I do know who Dean Ambrose is. I'm going to pay attention to see, oh, they made Dean Ambrose a bad guy. Okay, we can go with that a little bit, but I'm going to play devil's advocate on the other side. Let's see who we're going to get to go fight Dean Ambrose. Jon Moxley, who is a larger dude, and he's intimidating. And the group of baby faces that they have, who are the most altruistic baby faces that you are going to find in this case. The Hooks, the Orange Cassidys, the Darbys, and the Private Parties. They don't strike me as the group that can fight this new iteration of the Blackpool World Order.
I love it. BPWO. Trademark it. Shirt now.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
Before Tony can.
I agree with what you're saying. The visual of who they are doesn't apply. But I've been thinking a lot on that. We don't need that to apply right now. We really don't. So right now, and this is, I will say, Moxley's growing on me a little bit as well. And it's the thing that got to me is everything he did, he was trying to come across, at least the way I received it, was I'm super tough guy, badass, blah blah blah. Which I'm sure he is.
Ish, but unless you work at Walmart and face him in a jiu-jitsu tournament.
And it's what I'm getting at there is, I like my odds if I had to have a scuffle, if you will, is at least how I perceive. Now, listen, I may be completely wrong, and maybe I would just get sparked, and that would be hilarious. Just to see me just out cold on the ground. But I never got the whole, yeah, no, he'll kick my ass type vibe, like Cesaro or whatever you want to call him, Claudio Castagnoli. I don't even talk trash because he's on the same planet as me.
Yeah, well, because he can carry you.
Yes, with considerable ease. So, but I will say this.
Like, what are you going to do when he picks you up and holds you like a baby? Because you haven't been held like a baby since you were a baby. I know how large you are, sir.
So, the we don't need those baby faces to be their chief competition now. There was another takeaway, and it wasn't just at the end of the pay-per-view for them. I believe it was the Dynamite after, where the Blackpool Combat Club kind of when they beat down Orange Cassidy, and it showed the Elite looking back at them. You can kind of the Elite looked weak there. And you kind of have to look weak when that happens, because if we're going to be going up who can do this, right now, you need to build a babyface toward it. Like, if you want to put Darby Allin that way and have this be a long-term thing where Darby does that, fine. But you need to start that now, and they might have started that at WrestleDream. Okada should not have looked nervous about Moxley. Moxley is doing a fantastic job of actually coming across as genuinely menacing, and having to be worried if he's in the same room as you right now.
The group in general is doing a very good job of what they're doing. What they're setting out to do, at least it seems like. And as you said, they're just starting to heat. So you don't want to. I believe you used the term, if you throw too much seasoning in a sauce, you can ruin it real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you heat a sauce too quickly, you can ruin it almost as quickly.
So I think that you almost don't need Moxley to defend this belt. You can almost not. You can half Roman Reigns schedule him with this. We don't need him in the ring every week, going and having a 50-50 with somebody. If you're going to have him in there, it needs to be like an 80-20. Have somebody fire out hot, and then Moxley mops the floor with them.
Until you get that special moment.
Yeah,
in a few months.
And if you want to give somebody who's going to be a legitimate threat, Okada's a legitimate threat. Hangman Page is a legitimate threat. Jay White's a legitimate threat. When Lashley gets there, Lashley's a legitimate threat. And we already know Moxley's not afraid of the death match, and we know Swerve and Hangman aren't afraid of it either. So unfortunately, I think we're going to be getting some kind of weird-ass death match with the three of them. But those are the only people right now. And truthfully, if you want this to work, Moxley has to walk away on top of all of them.
I think he does. And so here's the thing is, I don't think we see Swerve get involved with this anytime soon. I don't think we see Lashley get involved with this anytime soon. All those guys that you just mentioned, I don't think that we see them get involved with this anytime soon, unless this is a very long-term thing. When I say long-term, I mean long-term by AEW standards, not necessarily WWE standards. So very similar to, and I know we keep referring to them as the new NWO because they are the new NWO, but a very version of how the NWO was in WCW in the beginning, where Hogan, they had guys that were going after Hogan, but even still, they weren't as believable because Hogan had this pack behind him. He had a wolf pack, if you will, behind him. Woo. So my thing is, and just hear me out. I was thinking about this after you and I spoke the other day about this, because those baby faces. Yes, I agree. Right now, those are the baby faces that we need. We need the altruistic, the most good of good, going after these guys, because we need them to get beat down. I hate to say it, but we need the villains to win. Anyone who believes that good wins in the end, it kind of falls on deaf ears. I don't know if anyone realizes this, but Evil's got a fuck ton in the trophy case. At the end, we need to be rewarded with the good guy, some version of the good guys winning. Yes, that has to happen. But I was thinking about this. I know there's never going to be a point where I believe that Hook can do it. There's never going to be a real point where I believe Private Party can do it. Orange Cassidy, there's this little part of me that might be able to believe it, but I get that they're having him be the reluctant leader almost. And Darby is obviously the heir apparent in this case. That he is Sting. He's trying to be Sting. I don't think that the rest of that group, though, can back Darby. I do think there is a group that can back Darby, and I think they laid the seeds for it already.
I'm listening.
House of Black. Sometimes you got to get a little dark to bring out the light. And I do believe that Brody King can do this. And I do believe that Buddy Matthews can do this. And I do believe that Malachi Black can do this. And if you team them up with Darby, that's a force.
I like where you're going with that, because I had only considered two factions to be dealing with, to be dealing with whatever we're calling, the Moxley World Order. I wasn't even considering.
I'm going with that one now. It's the MWO. I'm going to mess it up at some point. I'm like, yeah, the Mutton World Order.
So
sliced real thin.
That says something really negative, not about your choice there, because I like where you're going with that, and that does tell a story with the whole Brody King and Darby thing, because
the handshake at the end of their match at Wrestle Dream, there's a lot there that you can do. Like, hey, we found our common place, we found our common ground, and you're right, we need to fight. And that's a group that, if you put any of those guys in there with any of the members of the Blackpool Combat Club, the MWO, if you will, I think it works. I believe Murphy and any of those guys. I believe Malachi and any of those guys, and I definitely believe Brody King and any of those guys.
I would love to see Brody King and Claudio tear each other up, but I like that you brought that up, because the fact that I didn't even consider the House of Black in that, it shows how poorly they've been mishandled by AEW. But you know as well as I do, everything can be mishandled, and then once it's handled right, it's like it erases all of it. If you do it right. Now,
you just need to do it right, but they would have to do it right off the bat here.
Yes, I don't think you need to lean into this just yet. I think you could kind of slow build and simmer that. And
I mean, realistically, we're towards the end of October right now. They could slow build and simmer this until either the last pay-per-view of the year or the first pay-per-view of next year.
Yeah, and so now that you said that, this is the visual I have, and you can flip-flop the two. It can be either way. The more realistic is just somehow, for some reason, on a random offshoot Dynamite, you end up where Brody King you end up where the House of Black was wrestling in a tag match against two of them. And it's ending with a beatdown. And Darby comes out to kind of help Brody, and it's kind of reluctant. And who knows, maybe even Brody shoves him away, or the House of Black, after Darby tries to help them, maybe it even leads to Darby.
They shun him in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe he runs down there to try to help him, and he catches the hands too. And the final shot you look at is the Moxley World Order standing tall, and this new House of Black and potentially Darby Allin,
they'll be like
all
this.
beat up and good lord.
It'll be like this.
Yeah, it's too sour.
So sour. It'll be so sour.
So confused. Jesus Christ. But maybe the visual is that, and then it could even start with well, what the hell did that even do? Well, the 50 kicks I took are 50 less than you guys took, kind of thing. Or it could be something where Darby's catching it, and because of what was going on, maybe Brody King just has this whole weird ass, well, if anybody's gonna kick his ass, it's gonna be me, and it ain't gonna be you. And he goes down there, and you could spin that any way, and that's kind of how I like to give you these things. Is here is a basic idea, you add seasonings to it, and it may start off here and end up way the hell out in left field, but we had to start off there to get way the hell out in left field, which makes more sense. So maybe that's how you lean into this. And I'll be honest, I would love to see a series of matches between Yuta and Buddy Matthews and let them go.
Just let them go.
Yeah, and let Pac and Malachi just let them go.
Let them go.
And I specifically like that pairing, and then Brody and Cesaro or Claudio, because they're the big monsters out of the group, and
Well, and then
it's
what's more
believable
is you
for
can
Brody to manhandle Claudio.
you can have the House of Black then go after the trios title
Mm-hmm.
to try to get that off of them, while Darby is trying to pry the AEW title away from Moxley.
Yeah, it's I like where you're going with that, and yes, slow build the hell out of this, like
So
almost where
like super simmer. Like, we are in a crock pot. This is sitting for 2 days. I want slow dry aged beef at this point. Like, I want
falling off the
$200
bone.
steaks.
I
Yeah,
want
like I want
everything.
$200 steaks.
So, and which I would love nothing more. And again, we have routinely kind of kicked AEW quite a bit, and deservingly so. They definitely have mishandled some things. They definitely have shot themselves in the foot and stumbled out of the starting blocks many, many times, and it wasn't for anything other than just let's say age. Let's look at the entire company as a whole. Only being 5 years old, that is still a new company. And I mean, granted, you should start to, you shouldn't be wetting the bed anymore, but you still might have an accident here or there, kind of thing.
Here's I want to say, so I'm not bashing them, because I don't want to keep bashing AEW. I feel like we unfortunately beat a dead horse with this sometimes, and I don't want to just be an anti AEW show. Tony books, and you could say the same thing about Vince back in the day. Tony kind of books for himself and the fan base that is like him sometimes. And the issue with that is, again, at the end of the day, in order to have a profitable, successful wrestling business, it can't be about you. It has to be about the it actually has to be about the fringe, the people who aren't watching you, because that's what you're trying to get. You're not trying to the 6 to 800,000 people every week that tune in for Dynamite are there every week regardless. The 2 to 3,000 people that fill up every arena are there regardless. They are the last remaining stand of the people who love AEW, if for no other reason, because they are not WWE. Doesn't matter that WWE has changed, has done better. They're not WWE, and we love them just for that reason, and we will stand by that. The issue is, though, is you still kind of need some of that WWE, TNA, New Japan. Like, you need some of the crowds that was watching WC, the actual crowd that was watching WCW in 1995, in 1994. Like, you need those types of people to watch a product. And unfortunately, depending on when you tune on, listen, you and I are about the same age, and it's really scary because we're the same age as Tony. But if you and I randomly turned on AEW for some reason that wasn't for this show at this point, and you saw, I'll give an example. It's an old example. In the same episode of Dynamite a few years ago, they opened the show with SCU. So Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian versus FTR for the tag team titles. Amazing match, right? Like, that's something that you and I as wrestling fans, if we randomly stumbled onto that show, oh my God, this is awesome. This is what I want. The main event of that show on the same card, and I know I'm talking about a few years ago, and we've gotten past some of these growing pains, was Chris Jericho and Jake Hager versus somebody and Joey Janela. and like I think it was like Orange Cassidy and Joey Janela. So in the same show, you had completely serious, what would bring in true wrestling fans, and appalling, what would turn away pro wrestling fans.
All right, I see where you're going, and
again, like I said, I'm talking about a few years ago, but they still do some of this stuff.
So I see where you're going, and let's we can use a different form of media to describe what you're looking for. Here, you can, if any of the listeners are video gamers, you would know it as you have your hardcores and your casuals, and how you get frustrated if you're a hardcore that the game caters to casuals, or if you're somebody who's watching a professional sporting event. You need the people who only watch the Super Bowl, even if they're watching it for the commercials. You have to find a way to pull casuals in, which is why you need names. Which is why right now, they're not going to win that battle for them right now. They're not going to in the next couple months either. This is why everything that they're doing right now, and I'm not a big fan of the crazy work rate matches, but you know what? You need to have a talk with Osprey and them, and find a way to have a Forrest Griffin Stephen Bonner moment, and have Osprey is a part of it as just somebody people can get behind. He kind of comes across as an everyman, and then you realize he's a goddamn superhero.
He's a freak. He was invented in a lab.
Yeah,
bruv.
Bruv. So you need something like that where you can get 15-second clips that wow people. Because that's, unfortunately, that's where we're at now. We're at a time where people's attention
we're in that social media. We're in the social media, Twitter, TikTok realm, man.
Exactly, and it's people's attention spans, unfortunately, are less than that of a goldfish at this point. And you need to find a way to do that. But if you can grab enough people, because this particular guy or gal did this particular amazing thing, you can get people, and that you almost need to grassroots it here a little bit. Maybe that's not the best phrasing, but I think both you and the listeners will know what I'm going for when I say that. You need to have a groundswell again. And the only way you're going to do that, like, if they could grab Roman Reigns, it would move the needle immediately, but there's not somebody like that. Yeah. You can go and grab the biggest person from Japan, which they did in Kazuchika Okada. Doesn't move the needle for
America,
Joe Blow.
unfortunately. Yeah,
doesn't move the needle
average
for Joe
American
Blow
fan
in Oklahoma City somewhere, who's, who knows New Japan is a thing, and maybe has seen like a thing where it's like, oh wow, look at that, has no clue who Okada
AJ
is.
Styles was there for a while. Cool.
Yeah, it's so. If you're going to do all of this is why you need to have, first off, you need to have MJF have a couple of more damn near cancelable moments that people can talk about. Like, I kind of need MJF to become he's already a dick, and I need him to be a dick.
I need him to get his tires slashed. I need him to get windows blown out of his broken. I need Dalton from Roadhouse.
Yeah.
The original. I need a stop sign in his window and all four tires slashed.
And that's the kind of groundswell I'm getting at, where if you can, because that's the thing that AEW Road was like, everybody was so, and I know personally, I was sick of the Vince crap with WWE, and there was no other option. And that's why I fell in love with MLW and New Japan and All Japan, older stuff, and DDT, even though a lot of DDT stuff is just like silly, like people wrestling a blow up doll, which somehow there were a couple people who pulled off a match with the blow up doll where I was like, okay, you're really goddamn good. It was as dumb as it was entertaining.
I agree.
But we need to find a way for them to have a groundswell. And if this Moxley thing, if they turn him into the Marvel Comics kingpin, like the final boss, there you go.
He's another final boss.
Have him But the only way you do that, and it's, I hate to say it, like, just don't put plastic bags over people's heads anymore. Please, like, choke the shit out of them, but just not in the
not with
abduction way.
yeah. Don't do attempted murder anymore. Um,
But yeah, it's
here's the thing: is AEW is kind of at a reset right now, and I'm excited to see where they go. And I think there's some things that they can do well. Whether they do or not I'm staying open minded in this case, where we are going to have to see what happens for the rest of it. But that's kind of all I really wanted to get into for what we had this week. Like I said, it's kind of a little bit of a lull and a little bit of a reset, and it was I felt like an open forum today was going to be good for me and Hound to kind of get us back on track for our normal episodic programming, if you will. So with that, Legion, I think I'm going to call it for the night. Hound dog.
I have one thing I would like to share for the listeners to go and look for, because while scrolling while in the bathroom, I came across a clip, and we were just talking about people like the DDT doing silly stuff, and it was clearly an outdoor wrestling event, and I see a pro wrestler running and jumping the hurdles, and it turns out it's Takeshta, and he clears this last hurdle and hits the stiffest running kick I have ever seen, and puts a guy over another hurdle. And the look he gave the camera, I burst out laughing. So please go look for it.
Yeah, go watch it, because I'm going to go watch it now.
Because it just something silly and glorious, and you're like, ow, that really probably hurt quite a bit, because Takeshta hits freaking hard. But yeah,
he does.
Folks,
he hits so.
folks,
Guys,
thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and as always, remember, tuck your chin when you bump.